the S.O.A.P.
Welcome everyone to another episode of the S.O.A.P. This episode we're going to be talking about Far Cry Primal. I've got our guest on the show, Mike. Welcome.
Hello. Unwenja.
Now, Far Cry Primal, I've played a lot of Far Cry, but Far Cry Primal is one of the ones I haven't actually played. So it's going to be a lot of you, Mike, telling everyone about what to expect, what we need to know about this game. Now, it is a little bit old now, I guess. We're going back to, 2016 for when this came out? I think, the consoles first and then the PC came later. When did you start playing this?
Classics never die. When did I start playing this? I played it probably about 2 years ago. Fuck. Wow. And I think you've got my copy.
So how are you playing it?
Well, I bought another one. It was cheap. Okay, it was cheap. Don't judge me. I quite liked it when I first played it because it was Far Cry, but a different Far Cry than what we've seen before. So I was like, yes, I like this. And actually, a funny story. I'll just go off on a tangent here. About several months ago, I went into a internet cafe in the city because I was waiting for a friend because we were going to catch up and do some beers. And I was like, well, I'm just a few hours waste. So then I went into this underground Asian-esque bloody internet cafe, and I was like, oh, I'll just play some games. And like none of the games would fucking work because I just did no idea what I was doing, and except Far Cry Primal. So I was like, you know what, let's play this. And then like a few months from now, like past whatever, I went and bought it. I was like, hey, I'm going to play some more Far Cry. So yeah, that's the story of how I jumped back into Far Cry Primal. And I've been playing it really ever since.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing this episode. I've seen you playing a fair bit of it.
Yep.
I believe you've even maybe shown your daughter a little bit of it.
Yeah, tell ya. That's a funny story. I was playing the game and she kind of crept in and she's like, what are you playing? And this is Far Cry Primal, not that bad in terms of blood and gore and bullets and blowing up and shit. So I was like, all right, well, you just watch. And so she started to watch, and then she started to pick up stuff. And as kids will do, and you'll figure this out eventually, they think that you don't know anything. And so they start telling you, oh, there's a thing there. You got to do this, and you got to go there, and you got to do. I'm like, I know. I play the game. I know. Hush. And then she would, she kept watching. She kept, and then I was like, well, here, you play a bit, and you just go from A to B, from this location, this location. Because my second time around playing, I am trying to do all the mini missions and whatever you'll find in the games. So then she started to, and then she had no idea how to do combat. And I slowly taught her into combat, and so now she runs around, she rides the beasts and kills the people. It's a little bit scary because when she shoots somebody in the head or whatever, she's like, yeah, headshot. And there's a mechanic. We'll talk about this later. There's a mechanic where you have like an owl and it drops bombs and stuff. And then she'll be like, and if I'm doing it, and she'll be like watching, she'll be like, kill him, get him in the head. Use bees, he'll die of death. He'll get stung to death. Kill him. And I'd be like, what? Like, calm down. And she's like, shoot him with this
spear.
Is this
the moment you realize you screwed up?
Yeah, well, yeah. I kind of hid all my weapons in the room now, so she can't get them.
One day you'll just wake up and she's there with some bees.
She'll be speaking in the language. She'll be like, and I'll get a spear in the throat.
All right, well, let's talk the actual game and that. Now, Far Cry Primal is all about being primal, going back to primal times.
Stone Age. She called it. My daughter said, Stone Age. Are we playing the Stone Age game? I said, it's called Primal. She's like, Stone Age game? I'm like, it's Primal. She's like, Stone Age game. I'm like, yes, it's a Stone Age game. Fuck.
So how far back are we going? When's this game set?
Technically, what? You're looking around about in the 10,000 BC kind of era. You know that movie, the 10,000 BC? It's kind of like that, but better.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So it was, a lot of people haven't done that really, where you do a main jump from the Far Cry games, which is modern day-ish, to something far back. Like, I mean, technically, it's like the Neanderthals or if we want to be specific here, the Upper Paleolithic, Mesolithic period, which is like the Stone Age, more or less. Where stones becoming refined tools.
Yep.
And as you'll see in the games, you'll be able to upgrade your weapons. So it'll be like a typical bone club, and then you'll be able to upgrade it into something a bit more sturdier, and you can start to kind of see the evolution of the weapons, and it's cool. You're like, yeah, my spear is better than your spear, and you're like, yeah.
So is it like a real place that they've gone? Like, have they found like this data on like this old ancient place and they've used that, or have they just made all of this up?
Well, I mean, it's a fictional place. The place, the land you are fighting in or whatever, is called Oros or Orus, or I don't know how it's just Oros, which is kind of like, well, if you read into it, he talks about like Central Europe and Northeast Italy, parts of it. To me, sometimes it reminds me of the California redwoods, because there is you've got frozen tundra to the north, you've got like desertish kind of area to the call it south, rocky area to the, let's call it, east, and then like this really green, fertile place with really huge trees, like how you see in those old pictures, of trees is like 5 meters wide. It's trees like that. It just reminds me very much of these old California redwood pictures of the just huge trees and Planet of the Apes and stuff.
Yep.
So it's yeah, it's done well where it's different environments in one game.
Do you feel it's believable? Like, would you imagine this is how it was like back then?
Uh, yeah, I could say so. It's done well. Like the costume designs of the characters is done fairly well. I mean, it's simple to work with. It's all furs and leather straps and stuff. Nothing kinky, but it's all solid. It's all solid, kind of barbarian-esque, Conan.
Yep.
People wearing loincloths. I mean, the only issue I had with it was where, like, you go to the frozen north and winter's coming. You'd have to get yourself. One of the missions was to make winter clothing, right? So you'd go around and you pick up, gear, or you kill animals for fur and stuff. And so you go, yep, cool, I'm no problem. Because if you didn't have like winter clothing, you would slowly freeze. You'd have a little bar that would slowly go down, and you'd start to be shaking and freezing and eventually die. And so you think, okay, I'm rugged up. I've got like pants on. I've got fucking a jacket on and shit. I'm good. But then you go around to the little minor characters and the NPC, and they're running around with like bear shirts and like maybe a hooded jacket and like a hot pant furs, and you're like, this is supposed to be fucking cold weather here, and you're wearing hot pants. Like, get fucked. It's no, that's one of the little gripes I have with that is that it was not exactly, I mean, these guys are making games. What do I know? But you would wear hot pants. Like you wouldn't wear hot pants. You'd have proper clothing, and no one really was doing that. The villains of one of the north areas is huge dudes, and you can they run around mostly half naked, and you're like, yeah, cool, because he's fucking big. But these other people that were your allies, more or less, were wearing fucking hot pants and like a jacket. It's like, the women of today, where they wear hot pants and a puffy jacket. You're like, fuck.
So is crafting like a big thing in this game?
Oh,
like
yeah.
you mentioned it, you had this one mission where you could do it. Is that just like for a one mission, or is it a core mechanic of the game?
No, that is one of the core mechanics. So in most Far Cry games and in most other games, you'll do like, say, stores or shops or whatever. This is actually a major crafting mechanic of the game. So you would start off by having basic weapons, and then you would try and improve those weapons by collecting certain items. So, for instance, if you wanted to update your mace, your club, you would have to go, right, it says you need to have southern maple with a saber-toothed tiger skin and a bitefish. So you'd have to go and find those things, collect, however many of them that you needed, and then craft that weapon, and so on with armor and weapons and gear. So there is no shop per se. It is all crafting. You've got to craft everything.
Do you get to do like the cosmetic side of things, make your own outfits and skins on your weapons and things like that?
No, that's one of the things that was lacking with this Far Cry Primal game was you had a set character protagonist. You had to set you didn't even see him. Like if you got in your little owl and you circled him, you could kind of see him. And there's a picture of him in one of the menus, which is just like a bearded guy, and you had no idea what he looks like, bar that he's got dark hair, he's got a beard, he wears furs, and then the spears and the weapons and whatnot. You could see them in your like crafting thing, but that was just one image and that was it. You couldn't change anything. You just crap and done. You crafted the weapon, and that's what it. So that was something that was lacking as well.
You mentioned like you don't really see the character. Does he talk much?
Oh.
Is there much to do with vocals?
It's non-stop. Yeah. So they've done a language. They've it's like a new language. Very kind of like I can kind of speak to my 2-year-old nephew in the language, and he kind of laughs and giggles like he understands. So it's a it's a fictional language, and if you do your research, it's based on the the word would be Proto-Indo-European language. So you can kind of understand ish what they're saying, but it's very much like Uja Baga Wuda Gaba Budo. It's a bit like Jabba the Hutt. You Winja Abakida Nasila Nasila. And it's a little bit addictive because then I start calling the toy tigers from my nephew like Tigri, 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 and then like the panther like Pula, Puli, and so it kind of comes along, and then even Roses, my daughter, is going, Yabaratinda, as one of the back like they have a war cry with like the characters in the like Xena. So it's very it's got like the proper word would be a defined syntax and a structure to it. So it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings where these people have made this language up, and every word it would be kind of different, and people would use the same word, and you can kind of catch up on that word. So the storyline is whatever, but you have these characters and they just talk nonstop, and he'll kind of speak out loud, and he'll do wabazibada ujabala yalhavimada, and it's just like this is a cool fucking language.
Because there's multiple tribes, right? Do they all speak the same language, or did they have to like create all these different languages?
So in the story there are the 3 tribes, and they more or less speak the same language. They each have their own dialects that you don't pick up on. It's very 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 kind of thin and far between, because you'll have characters, villains per se, that will speak Wenja. Oh, you speak Wenja? Like there is subtitles. Everything is subtitled because you can't fucking understand them. So everything's subtitled, and then they'll go, "Oh, you speak Wenja? Yeah, yeah, I speak Wenja. I understand you." And they'll be like, "All right, cool." So like the Udam, which is the northern tribe, the big furry dudes who eat, they're cannibals. They eat the Wenja. They're soft blood. They'll have a guttural language, very much like, and you don't really pick it up because there's no subtitles on that. And then the southern tribe, which is the Azila, which is like a fire tribe, very much like to sacrifice the Winja by burning them alive and all this kind of stuff. And they have a bit of a higher pitched kind of like, I don't exactly know what it's like. Terrible rendition. But like an interesting point was you'd go through the map and you'd kind of come across sacrificial areas, and daughter would be watching and she'd be like, "What's that?" And I'd be like, "This is what they did, okay? They sacrificed people, and then they're gonna die." I was like, "They can't do that. They're gonna die. You're gonna kill them, Dad." I'm like, just calm down, all right? It's just a game. So it was interesting. They didn't really shy away from the graphics per se of people being eaten alive, burnt alive, kind of stuff like that.
We've talked a little bit about your character as well as the people in general, the tribes that you'd see. What about supporting characters? Are there many other memorable characters or?
Not particularly. Like you'll go through, and some of your missions throughout the game will be to find people, find major characters, and then throughout that, but they don't. That's it. They kind of you meet them, you greet them, you might do a few kind of like interactions with them. But they're mostly absent from the game. Like if you're going through a mission, there's only a couple of missions that you'll actually have a person with you running through and going, hey, this is, we need to do this and do that. But most of the time they send you off on a quest or whatever, and you go back to them and you say, cool, blah, 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 blah. So you get a bit in the interaction stage, but you don't see them at all elsewhere. Like one of the mission would be one of the females in there goes, you need to go here and save the mammoth. Yeah, okay, cool. I will meet and help me out there. And you're like, okay, cool. I get to see her fight, but no, fucking, she's not there. So it's a little bit lacking.
Did you find that it ruined your buy-in? So when I talk about buy-in, I'm talking about your investment into the game. Often the storyline, the characters that you meet and things like that will help you buy into the game and get immersed within it.
Yeah.
So with The Witcher, you have all these side characters and that who aren't just like this token appearance. They're very detailed and they're constantly appearing. By not having that in this game, did it ruin your immersion, or are you immersed because of the world and the other things?
It was a bit disappointing that you couldn't continue with them. Like you do all the stuff, all the requirements for a character, and then he go and sit by his tent that you've made with the ingredients that you've put together. I mean, it's just like I'm holding this fucking world together. I build everything, and they just fucking mooch off me. But like, for instance, the main girl at the start, she's got something for fucking ears. She cuts off ears, like from Universal Soldier. So you can kind of tell that she's got like post-traumatic stress disorder. So you kind of feel sorry for her. And then like there's another character who's like son's been killed by the Udam, and you're like, I want revenge, and you're like, fuck yeah, man, let's go get revenge. So there is a little bit of camaraderie and actual connection with the characters. But once you've done with that character, that's it. You lose. It's like, the guy just sits in front of his tent and says, thanks fucking a lot. And that's it. There's no follow through. So, yeah.
So when I've played Far Cry, especially like number 3, which is before this, one of the big things that we had was the camps, and you take over these camps to try and control the map and defeat your enemies. With the tribes, do you still have these camps, or is it more focused on the animals?
There are camps. There'll be watchtowers, or more or less bonfires that you go and claim. Similar, and there'll be outposts as well, similar to the rest of the Far Cries. They'll be scattered throughout the map. So if you take a bonfire out, it reveals more to you. Say, for instance, with number 3 of Far Cry, you'd have to climb a tower, and then you'd turn the switch, and then that would reveal locations. And this was very similar. It was kind of cool because there was many ways, lots of mechanics you could go about, either setting this bonfire on fire, or you could, even an outpost, you could do many different ways of attack. Some of the times I was like, what, fuck this, I'm just going to use the owl, and you can upgrade the owl to have bombs and stuff that drops from above, and you could tag enemies that your companions could actually go in and attack. So you didn't have to do anything. I mean, I hid behind trees many times and just sent the owl in, and then sent the other animals that you have with you to fucking take over a camp, and boom, it was done. So yeah, these particular thing with I kind of miss from Far Cry 2 was when you take an outpost and you take an outpost and take an outpost and then you'd have a one in off chance that they would attack that outpost. I think it kind of happened in Far Cry 3 as well, which they would reclaim an outpost. That kind of was good in a sense that you could kind of hey, it's not just a conquer and that's it. You have to conquer and keep the peace. But in this game, it was just conquer and you had everything. So another small little thing was you have little missions in between, which there'd just be a random encounter, and they'd be either like save your people from it being attacked by either animals, by enemies, if people were being kidnapped or something like being walked across, you kind of have to kill the escorts and save the person. So that was constantly throughout the whole map, even if you conquered it. So that still happened.
How did you find the combat? You talked about using the owl, and we've briefly touched on like having maces and bows and arrows and that. How did you find it? Did it change a lot from the previous games?
Yeah, I mean, most of it was combat. So the old hack and slash. You did have ranged combat, which was bows and throwable weapons. So you could do shards, which is just like a dagger but made out of stone. You would be like it was. I mean, it was some of it was brutal because it was great. Actually, one of the great things about it was you'd have a spear and you could throw the spear. And as I said before, you do headshots, so you get extra points if you shot stab through the spear through a guy's head. Now that mechanic, you shot the guy, it went to his head, the spear goes into his head, he falls back, the spear is still in his head, and then you can go up to him and pick that spear back up. So it was really, really kind of good flowy kind of stuff. Like you be the only problem with the spear would be it's you have a heavy and a light attack. So you'd either just jab, 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 or you'd hold, pause, and jab. And same thing with the clubs. It was a very short. You have spear, club, and bows and arrows, and that was it. You trio of weapons. You'd have a heavy club, a light club, a spear. That's it, and then you'd have a one bow, a long bow, and then a dual shooting bow, which was just 2 arrows. So with combat, you'd have different tiers of enemies that would be difficult and easy, but it was very much simple. It was kind of just like whack, 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 whack. You would do ultimate damage if you hit them straight in the head, if they were a low level character. Otherwise, you just kind of a couple of hits and they were dead. So it was engaging.
And you showed your daughter this?
Yes, she actually she likes hitting. She likes I didn't really know about what to think of it when I first asked. I'll just try it out, and then she just kind of, she's cold, man. Like she's been desensitized to I feel
You're
old
raising
saying
a killer.
that. Yeah, I feel old saying this. Kids these days, they just, sometimes she's scary. Like, she was eager for people to die. I was like, fuck,
Was it just the people that she wanted to die, or did she hate? Like, did she enjoy killing the animals?
She
as
did
well?
everything. Yeah. So you could say, for instance, they had a day and night cycle, which was done well. And at night, you'd have ravenous packs of wolves or a tiger, saber-toothed tiger, or even lions. And it was really kind of eerie because their eyes would glow yellow, and you'd see them in the distance, and you either be wolves, eyes coming at you, and the sounds were great because it just and you'd be like, fuck, there's a tiger around. And yeah, she was like, fuck, kill him, go hit him. She was like, get that tiger, I mean that lion, I mean that badger. It was just, and some of like at the start of the game, you'd have to go and hunt particular animals, and towards the end, you could actually accumulate a what do they call it? A bestiary of animals, and it would range from a small badger that was fucking hard to kill to a cave fucking bear. That's a tank. So with these animals, the mechanic of that was you had to throw bait. They had to be interested. Then you had to slowly come up to them and go Yamada, and tame them, which was a silly thing of just turning your wrist around and they smell you and you're cool. But yeah, you'd have these guys and they would come with you. You could ride particular animals like the tiger and the bear. You could ride them because there is fast travel in the game, but most of the time you kind of like, yeah, fuck it, I'll fast travel and then I'll hop on the tiger and I'll go for a drive. So it replaced like the vehicle mechanic in other games.
So what kind of animals are we expecting in this game? Is it
so it ranges anything. Think of prehistoric animals. So you'd have the saber-toothed tiger, which think of like Ice Age, right? You've got the mammoth. You didn't have sloths. You had wolves, which would be packs of wolves. You'd very rare to find a wolf by himself. You'd have a wide range of animals, surprisingly, in a small kind of continent area. You'd have cave lions, different colors, cave lions, different types of wolves, badgers, these kind of African dogs, I think, wild dogs or something or other. You'd have cave bears, brown bears. You know what was really fucking annoying? They actually had snakes that, which was in Far Cry 3 and 4 and whatnot. But the problem is you can hear him, and you're like, where the fuck is this guy? And in the game mechanics, every other game, you can tag animals with a little icon above them. But the snakes, they didn't allow you to tag it, and you're like, fuck you. So you'd be walking past, and this snake come out, get you, bite you on the arm, and then you'd have poison, and your health will go down. You're like, fuck you, cunt. And I mean, I've killed a few snakes in my day, and they didn't die like actual snakes. Snakes wobble and flop and flop and flop and flop until 10 minutes later when they actually die. You'd shoot this guy, and he just dead, and you're like, nah, that's not how a snake dies. But yes, you'd have deer, you'd have like all the you'd have woolly rhinos, which are a punk to kill. You'd have the mammoths, which you can actually ride, little female mammoths you could ride. Adult bull mammoths would just fuck you up no matter what, unless you're like on a rock or they can't get you and you just shoot them. Set them on fire. Fire is a good mechanic in this game. You can go to a torch that's just sitting there, set your weapon alight, and either just walk around and burn people, or throw it at somebody and burn them that way.
What about when I think about Far Cry, I think about the villains.
Yeah.
The antagonists for the storyline are normally really well done. Without going into the full storyline of that, how did you find the antagonist in this storyline?
Well, considering there is like 2 or 3 of them, very lacking in memorabilia. Like it was okay. So like the female antagonist for the Zilla tribe, she has a few interactions with you where she, you can tell she's a bad guy. She's a bit of a bitch, and then you kind of just kill her, and it leads up to it. She's like a big boss fight. You have a few I'll jump into the Udam guy. He's a big dude. You kind of go through a few camps to get to him, but it is a bit lackluster. Like they don't actually have these grand kind of monologues where they tell you, how great they are or what they don't. These guys, you kind of are like there's no real hating them. They are just doing their job. Yes, she's generic. She's generic. Yes, she's burning fucking people alive, and she's trying to bring about the end of the world. And yes, he's wanting to eat everybody, but you kind of like, you don't really care what your storyline is. It's not engaging really. It's nothing worth like a movie worth. They're just kind of generic and bland.
You mentioned before you're on your second playthrough of the game. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you try the survival mode? I believe they added it after launch as a patch. Have you seen much to do with that?
No, I've not actually done. I've not been game enough to do that. I think it was like it's just like a realistic version of every other game you can't see, where it's easier to die, it's harder to heal, you don't get to tag animals and whatnot. It's very much a hardcore level. So it's
What about multiplayer? Did it do any multiplayer modes or that with this one?
Surprisingly not. I think even Far Cry 3 had a multiplayer mode or a co-op thing, but this one is just a single player campaign. That's it. Which I think they could have done, but they decided not to, and I think they're a little bit less for it. So they tried to stick with the gameplay. So, you're playing with your animals, so that's, I guess, kind of multiplayer.
What about the sound of it? We talked a little bit about language in that. How does the atmosphere and sound come across in the game?
Great. There is no particular music per se. There's not really a soundtrack that you can kind of pick out through your head. there is music sounds going through sometimes, but it's more to do with the vastness of the game. Like you could, like we were climbing a mountain, and my daughter was watching, and I kind of just I like looking over the scenery when I get into a good game, and I just how's the serenity? I just like so we climbed this mountain, and you could see the vast the valley below and the mountains around it, and I was just looking, and Rose says, "What are you doing?" I'm just enjoying the view. And she's like, "Oh yeah, it's very beautiful." I said, "It is, fucking." And while you're there, you can hear the birds singing, you can hear animals, chattering away, and you can hear the predators, rah, 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 rah. Even fucking eagles come and attack you. But like this, characters will talk to themselves as well throughout the game. You'll have like the NPCs will have their own dialects, and they're talking. I mean, there's even you go into your village that you run in your base of operation, and like one guy's just playing music on like a fucking hollowed out thing, and I'm like, this guy's just chilling. Um, he's just so yeah. Sound is fantastic because even at nighttime, you hear a hoo 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 hoo, an owl hooting, and then and each the animals around you will be attacking and doing their own thing. So you could just watch somebody, and like I like to kind of just watch bears, and they'll sniff around, they'll they'll chase a deer or a goat or a boar, and they'll try and find honey, and so it's a little micro world. It was very impressive.
Did it change as you went to like different tribe to tribe? Like, did each area have its own unique sound, or
Yes and no. So you'd have like the sounds that the villagers, like the enemies would make, and but particularly you wouldn't really have a major score through the film. It was all very much kind of if you completed a village or a mission, you would have sounds coming through. But that was it, really. I mean, most of the soundtrack was done with like percussion. Like felt very felt like either kind of a bit of Aboriginal, Aztecish, like Mexican. You'd have you could do if you were trying to attack a village or an outpost, and you made a if you weren't stealthy, they would call a horn. They would blow on the horn, and reinforcements would be coming. So it was very much you'd have a lot of sound through there, and so you'd have a lot of it was just very very tribal music whenever it did come through.
perfect? Well, I think we've covered a fair bit of this. If you were to give an overview of the game, how would you describe it, and would you recommend it?
Well, it does take you back in time. Like it has a nice little at the footage at the start, a montage of things going back in time to where it is at now. It was a great open world. It had rolling plains, momentous forests. The gameplay was very very engaging and interesting. You'd be able to do a heck of a lot of things. Um, you It made a change from not having to buy stuff. You actually had to make stuff, and you couldn't really. It did lose its luster when it lost out on the whole character creations and actual armory modifications and whatnot. And the storyline wasn't that involved. It's not a story, a game for you to look at the story wise. It's a game for you actually to play, control animals and whatnot, jump around and shoot people with bows and arrows. It gives you a refreshing break from the old guns and glory games. It don't expect to have fantastic villains. Don't expect to have amazing side characters. It's just a one-man army kind of game where you are the one who is fixing everything. And it's you're up to you. You'll have little missions where people go, "Oh, can you do this?" And you're like, "Well, why don't you fucking do it?" But it's up to you to do it. So yeah,
Would you recommend it?
I would recommend it because it's a good I mean, I'm playing it twice now. It's a game I don't really do that often. I just liked. I'm more of a medieval kind of man, as most of the viewers or listeners will know. I like to have the sword and board. I like to have the spears. I like to have a break from guns and glory every now and then, and it's a good break from that. And it, even for the visual effect, very similar to Far Cry 4, I think it was, where we fighting off pagan Ming, and the Tibetan landscape was just awe-inspiring. I mean, you're always surrounded by either water or mountains, but it's just a nice game to play. Like, you don't have to worry too much about storyline. You don't have to worry too much about what everyone else is doing. You just do what you want to do, and if you do the missions, then you progress through the game. Otherwise, I mean, I'm going through this game and not really worrying about the mission too much. I'm going through and doing all the minor stuff, trying to get all the little collectibles and whatnot, and just having a bit of fun with it, not taking it seriously. But it's a good, like, even I do like little mini history lessons with the daughter. I'm like, hey, so this is a saber-toothed tiger, this used to, now it's died off, and then they killed off the mammoth. The mammoths are frozen. Look at this tar pit, and this is where you jump, and this is how you grapple. So it's and you're like, so this is how they did grain, and they cut it in bundles, and so it's a little bit of a history lesson too. So good.
What games would you say this is like? Would Far Cry, like the other Far Cries, be the closest to it, or would you say something like Horizon Zero Dawn, or what's closest to it?
Well, considering I haven't really played Horizon Zero Dawn, it's in the family of the Far Cries. You have that very similar kind of mechanics. It's different in terms of the modernization. I mean, you could even hearken it to bloody Skyrim, really. I mean, not the whole roleplay factor of it, but I'd say it's very close to Far Cry. I still feel like I'm playing a Far Cry game. I mean, yeah, it could be similar to a Horizon Zero Dawn or an Ark thing where you have to collect and collect, a little bit like Conan Exiles, where you just have a character. You've got to mine. You've got to collect stone, collect timber, collect furs, collect this, and then you can craft. And you can craft this, and then you've got to make this, but you've got to find that rare flower to make this potion, so that you can heal yourself. It's a bit simpler than all the choices you get. Say if you play a Call of Duty game or whatever, where you can mix and match whatever guns you want, stuff like that. It's very much a little bit of a narrow game where it's just, this is what you've got, this is what you can upgrade to, and that's all you need to do.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you for sharing a fair bit of knowledge in the end on this one.
Hey, well, that's right. Sure, actually, yeah. It's a good game. I liked it. I like it still.
Well, if you're listening, leave some comments. Let us know what you thought of the game. But thank you, everyone, for listening, and thank you, Mike, for joining us.
No problem. Anytime.
For everyone listening, if you can like, subscribe, all the usual, you know where to find us, Facebook, YouTube, Reddit, all those fun places. We look forward to the comments.
You have been listening to the S.O.A.P podcast. Join us again soon for another episode, and don't forget to hit us up on all the social media platforms, because we love hearing from you.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.